I-24 News Morning Edition on this December 14th, 2015, the place to be. Because we're looking at Saudi Arabia this morning. It has elected 17 women to its municipal councils in the first ever poll open to female voters and candidates. It's being hailed as a historic day for women in the Sunni Kingdom, which was the last country in the world to grant female suffrage. Now, the pledge to allow women to take part was made by the late King Abdullah in response to the Arab Spring several years ago. He also appointed women to the Shura, the consultative council, so to speak. But all that said, yesterday's turnout in the elections was very low. Remember, this is the third time ever that Saudi citizens have voted in an election, meaning they have little experience in the process. Moreover, women still have several restrictions, to name a few, on their freedoms in the kingdom, including being forbidden to drive or leave the house without a male chaperone. So is this really a step towards equality or merely an illusion of reform? I'm joined in studio by former news reporter, photographer, and human rights advocate, Anat Saragusti. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Of course, with me, Ami Kaufman, I-24 News contributor, because I never leave home without him. Before anything else, let's take a look at the following report from Saudi. Break it down.
Salima bint Hazab El Otebi made history today and became the first woman to be elected to public office in Saudi Arabia. 16 other women were elected to municipal council in the landmark election in the Islamic Kingdom, which saw women allowed to vote and be elected for the first time in the country's history.
We've had two municipal elections, and this time is the first time that females were allowed to participate. We have accumulated quite a number of voters, with about 600,000 voters this time, and about 130,000 of them are female.
On Saturday, masses of men and women went to the polls and cast their vote. Though many saw it as a remarkable opportunity and step forwards towards equal rights, others saw it as just a natural move by the government.
I want to see the women to be more involved in every institution in the government and in the private sector. Okay? To be part of the planning, part of the execution, part of the performance, part of the evaluation. She has to be always there.
However, the journey to full gender equality in the Desert Kingdom still has a long road to travel. All women in Saudi Arabia must be accompanied by a male guardian and are forbidden from driving cars, since Saudi clerics say this undermines social values. The World Economic Forum ranked Saudi Arabia 127th out of 136 countries with respect to gender equality. Perhaps the women who were elected may be taking a small first step towards an equal society in Saudi Arabia.
And in addition to Anat Saragusti, who's with me in studio, I want us to go straight first to Amman. Jordan, we're joined by Adam Kugel, Middle East researcher for Human Rights Watch. And I want to ask you, Mr. Kugel, firstly, we're looking at this, hailed all over the world, headlines all over the world, Saudi Arabia, vote for women. It's a great first step, but who is it designed for, in your mind?
Well, look, I think that if you look at women's participation in the election, I think it's a really important symbolic step for women. Now, to be sure, these municipal councils aren't all that important. They don't decide on important political issues, right? However, it's a signal from the Saudi leadership to society that the slow kind of marginal advances we've seen on women's rights over the last 10 years or so, first initiated under King Abdullah, are going to probably continue. Now, the move in and of itself, like I said, isn't all that important, but taken with viewing all of the changes that have happened over the last 5 to 10 years, we can see a slow progression forward. To be sure, there's still a lot of discrimination against women. But the trajectory is positive.
No, as you just said, that we've seen, I think, in the last 5 years, because many will say this is a reaction to the Arab Spring, that this was a decision that was made because of the Arab Spring. But over the course of the last 5 years, apropos the beginning of the Arab Spring, we've seen, many countries actually turn backwards. Is there any indication that, my fear is that this is actually just a paying out for the, for the public in Saudi Arabia and for the West, giving the rights to women. From Human Rights Watch, are we seeing any kind of reversal of things that happened because of the Arab Spring?
No, not on this particular issue. I would actually say, rather than the Arab Spring, I think it's the principled action by organized and very, very intelligent Saudi women activists over the last few years that have led to this result. Right. These women have gotten together in very, very incredibly difficult circumstances, have organized, have done driving protests, have done all kinds of civil actions, and they're the ones who really put pressure on the government to allow this to happen. And the fact that the Saudi government would even feel like it needed to satisfy a domestic constituency, I think, is really an advance.
In the best. Rightfully so said, so to speak. Thank you for joining us from Amman. Anat, first of all, I love hearing that it was the work of women,
right.
You know, the work of women. But we have to remind people that Saudi Arabia is far from being, you know, from granting equality to women, isn't it?
Let's say it's far from granting equality for people. You know, there is no general elections in Saudi Arabia. We have to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only regional elections. And it's only the third time they conduct such elections.
Right.
So let's put it in the context. Having said that,
Right.
on the bright side, it's really very symbolic. And we concluded after a century, right? The women revolution, women liberation revolution, or something like that. And so it's very symbolic for women. And it's really it's an outcome of a struggle of women, which is also very important.
No, very important to say that I'm glad we're hearing it both from you and from Kugel, from Amman. Women in the Middle East. I'm going to ask you the same thing, because since the Arabs...
Are we including the Middle East? I mean, is Israel including the Middle East?
That's a great question that I think we've been wondering for quite a few years. But yes, women in the Middle East, when we're looking at the umbrella, we're seeing women being the target of all these conflicts. If it's the Yazidi women, you know, targeted by ISIS, if it's what's happening to women in places where social revolutions are happening, is this a time where women can take control? Are we seeing a step forward like in Saudi, or are we seeing women in the Middle East taking a step backwards because of the conflict?
It's always both. You know, it's a pushback,
yeah,
which is an outcome of successful revolutions or successful struggles or successful effects on women and gender equality in general. The more the religious power is gaining power, the more the pushback
right.
is strong, you know. So it's always a give and take kind of, I don't know, struggle or process. So we can see that as a symbolic act. We can see that women are participating. We can see the joy in the Saudi Arabian women's eyes because we don't see their faces, but still, and it's very symbolic. And just one thing that we have to acknowledge, this is not the last country that granted.
Thank you, right?
The Vatican.
The Vatican. No. And I was...
The Vatican, you know,
no,
it's all male-dominated country. They don't have any elections except for the cardinals who elect the Pope once in a while, and that's it. So, yeah, Saudi Arabia is a symbol, and we have to acknowledge that, but still, the long way to go. And, you know, one said that to gain gender equality, you know, in the natural process, we need 100 years. So do we have that time? I don't know. I don't have that time.
I don't have
that time. Do you have that time?
No,
do you have that time? I don't know. You
yeah.
know, it's always something that you have to be very active at, and don't wait for that to happen naturally.
No. You have to, I'm going to conclude this as what I tell to my daughter. Do not wait for the prince to save you.
Exactly.
Yeah, save yourself. Anat, thank you as you're staying with us.